All right. Should I be able to hear myself? Hello? Testing? Testing? Y'all can hear me? Okay. All right. So in the tradition of the community that I was brought up in, I'm going to ask permission from my elders to speak. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to Light, Fine Wine, Black Joy Over Time. This is a project of joyful practices, joy actualization coaching for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Tonight we are celebrating the joyful accounts of Dr. W. Joy Hardiman. Y'all can celebrate. Yes, thank you so much. So before I go any further, I'm going to call the ancestors into the room through a ritual that we call libation. So libation is a practice that is ancient, and it was reintroduced to the Pacific Northwest by Dr. W. Joy Hardiman. Dr. Joy Hardiman is the reason why many of our African-centered celebrations begin with an ancestral libation to bring our folks who have passed on into the space to celebrate with us or mourn with us or to do whatever it is we're here gathered to do. And there is a process. It is an interactive ritual. So I'm going to call in the energy and the spirits of different segments of our folks who have passed on. And when I do that, I'm going to pour some water into the earth and say ashe. And when I say ashe, you say, that's right. So we're going to practice a little bit. Ashe, ashe, ashe. That's perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. So we are gathered here in the spirit of joy and celebrating and cultivating our joy. I want to call in the ancestors that were in continental Africa before the Mayafa, those who experienced their joy through dance, through song, through spirit, through science, and through art. Ashe? To those of our ancestors who survived the Middle Passage and were able to still experience some level of joy in the most harsh conditions. Ashe? To those of our ancestors who fought in movements for liberation and did it through through their talents, those artists that rallied and did performances to finance movements. Ashe? To those of us who had some pieces of peace to hold the cookout or to hold the dance or to make art in the community. Ashe? Now I want us all to take a collective breath. I want you to think of people who you knew who have passed on, who knew how to get joy done. They knew how to shut the party down. They knew how to feel that joy in their body. They knew how to rest. And just take a few minutes and call their names into the space, and I'll pour for them. Okay, I'll start with Edith Arnett Majors. Barbara Reed, Ashe. So, Ashe. Now I want you to think of folks that you knew who really needed to experience joy, whom you wish you could share your joy with. Go ahead and invite them into the space as well. Ashe. 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 All right. Y'all feel him? I feel him. Okay. So again, thank you so much for being here. This project started on with a much smaller vision. I needed content for my business, and I was like, I know, I'm just going to ask a bunch of elders to talk about their joy, and then I'll put pieces of it on social media. And when I put the call out, the responses that came back were so beautiful. And they were so, I mean, like the magnitude of the beauty of these narratives that came back. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't planning for that. And I was like, everybody needs to hear these stories, and these stories need to be accessible to our community, like in perpetuity. Just like we can access all of our tragedies, we need to be able to access not just our triumphs, but just how we got down, how we kicked it, how we laid back and kicked back, right? So this project, these first four narratives of Baba Kalfani, Miss Louis Shelburne Atkins, Dr. W. Joy Hardiman, and Dr. Marcia Tatarunga, these four are the foundation of what I'm hoping to be the collection of joy narratives. And I'm 44 now. I hope that once I'm in my 60s, I can enter my own joy narrative in. And I'm hoping that Salma will enter her joy narrative into it, right? So that's what this is creating. So when I realized that the project was bigger than myself, I set about looking for a filmmaker. And Michael B. Main, who's sitting right there, is a person who said yes, and he has brought so much beauty and joy to this process, and I'm so grateful. He really, he said that this project is in values alignment, and it's just like something that's heartfelt, and he's given in kind to that sentiment. And you'll see how beautiful these narratives are recorded, like right now, because I'm about to stop talking. We're going to watch it. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll have a joyful inquiry session when we're done and you get to ask questions. All right? We can get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joy Hardiman, for joining me for Like Fine Wine, Black Joy Over Time. This is a project of joyful practices, joy actualization coaching for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Dr. Joy, how are you today?
I am just feeling really great. Thank you.
I'm so glad that you joined me. Dr. Joy Hardiman is an author, among many things. She is the author of The Resurrection of Truth from the Chains of Falsehood. She was the second dean of Evergreen State University.
Well, actually, I was, and this is an evolutionary thing, Dr. Maxine Mims founded the school, and she was the director.
Okay.
And then I took it over, and I was the executive director.
Okay.
And now Dr. Marcia Tate-Arunga is the dean. So each time that we have moved into place, we have elevated.
That is fantastic.
I know.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. Dr. Joy, I adore you and I adore your energy. I'm so grateful that you chose to participate in this project. In addition to blessing the community with your accounts of joy in the course of your lifetime, it's an opportunity. This project is an opportunity for me to share love and appreciation for the people who made me the woman that I am, and some of the people that we will be hearing stories from. And we met on the Cultural Reconnection Mission trip to Kenya, and on that trip I got to see you in your power in a way that was really inspiring, and you have since been a model for me, like who I want to grow into in terms of the projects that I lead, my business, all the things that I'm creating, like being able to step into that leadership with and utilizing the guidance of my ancestors. Like I see you do that very well, right? I've gotten to see you pour libation in community. I've gotten to see you speak on a number of different topics in the community, and I've gotten to see you have a lot of fun. And so I think that this is the piece, because there are a lot of elders that raised me and that showed me how to work and how to study and how to be excellent and a lot about my heritage and culture. And I think you embody joy like none other, right? You travel the world and you still handle business. You still do your projects, you write your books, you're still very active in community and just brilliant.
Thank you.
And I get to witness that. And I get to see what really living into your values looks like. I get to see what living into your eldership looks like, and moving with a lot of love. And you just have a generosity of spirit too. And so it's just, every time I leave you, I'm just like really full. And so I really appreciate your presence in my life and the contributions that you've made to our community. I mean, not just here, but around the world.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So, thank you. And can you share some stories from your childhood, like where you've experienced joy? Like, how did you experience joy as a child?
Okay, let me think. Well, first of all, I think it's important to know that I was an only child. So I spent a lot of time in my head as a child. And I would create stories in my head. I was a ferocious reader. I would just read anything and everything I could, from Jet magazines and Ebony in the bathroom to going to the library and sneaking in the young adult section when I was supposed to be in the kids section. Comic books, anything. I just wanted to read. Almanac, Reader's Digest. I got to learn to love words through Reader's Digest. Increase your vocabulary. I would always go to that immediately and try to see how many new words I could say and how they would roll over my mouth, because I had a lisp. So I really love words with many syllables, because it made me discipline my tongue. So as a kid, growing up, like I said, I spent a lot of time alone, and I still enjoy, being alone and playing with my head and talking to myself and making up different voices and different people, all of which are having a delightful time inside there. And like, okay, this is going to come out today. Also as a kid, I was really blessed because my father was a Tuskegee Airman. He wasn't a fly guy, but he was the reconnaissance. He did the navigation. So he was really into maps and travel, and so he wanted me, so every summer we would spend our time 2 weeks out of the year, because he was a civil servant, traveling, because he wanted me to go to every single state before I went to high school, so I would know the capitals. So he would drill me. He'd say, you gotta know the capitals. For some reason, he thought life depended upon knowing the capitals of all 48 states. So before I was in high school, I went to all 48 states and all the Canadian provinces, as well as Cuba, and as well as it was Canada, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and Cuba. And so so as a child, it was reading, it was traveling, how I would enjoy, and I have to say I was blessed with a sense of curiosity, so I'm a lifelong learner. Yeah. In fact, I used to say, if I'm not growing, I'm going. Which, what I said with my first marriage. It's like, that's where it came up. It was like, okay, this is cool, and I really like you, but I'm stuck. We're not growing, and so I gotta go. I'll take the lamp and the pitcher, and and I'm out. And my parents. So a lot of this is parental influences. Not only were they into travel, but they really wanted me to know life beyond the city. So we would spend. So I would spend my fall going to. We would go to New England and go to my aunt's house, and she lived on a farm, and she made things and made beautiful crafts things, and so I got to see that power of the folk art. And we would go running around to different stores and look at antiques, and then bring them back and redo them. So that whole sense of putting your hand in the soil, and they would. I would go and learn how to gather eggs, and so that it balanced me as a city girl, and and my mother, because I was an only child, and they made a decision that they could afford to give everything they wanted to do to one child. And so they made a decision not to have many, but to invest in me. And so as a kid, I went to the Museum of Science, and I took classes there. I went to teepee camporee and learned how to make fire. You know, which was great because all of these were free programs that were available. You know, to a young family kind of struggling and coming up. So I went to the Museum of Science. I went to the Albright Knox Art Gallery and took art classes and looked at them. They had me, and my mother was an activist, and so anytime she thought I might have a talent or something, and she would get and try to do something about it, and they wouldn't let black people in, then she would immediately become part of the board. You know, so she became the board of the Studio Arena Theater, and they let me in. And she became the president of the YWCA, wow. which was also segregated at the time. And she worked her way up so I could take swimming lessons. And didn't do so good with those. But the point was that that I was really blessed. Yeah. I was really blessed. But also, what was marvelous is that my parents were total opposites, and so I learned how to work in both and as opposed to either or. My father liked pork and beans and wieners, and my mother liked escargot. My father liked Ripple, and my mother liked Chivas Regal. My father liked spaghetti. My father liked to go to the Little Harlem and hang out with the guys there. My mother liked to go to the symphony. So I had a chance to really appreciate both those worlds, so it made me kind of balanced. And they also wanted me not to know that just because they were middle class and stuff like that, they were, I wasn't. So they made sure that I didn't ever, get a big head or anything. And my mother was a special education teacher, and so she would bring kids home from the school and say, that person, she's going to spend the weekend here, and you got to share your room. Because one, she wanted to expose her kids to more than what they had in their limited environments, and two, she wanted me to understand something that's always been with me: to whom much has been given, much is expected. And that, and so those were the things that, so I guess in the sense that brought me joy as a kid: reading, traveling, hanging out in nature. Those were the primary things as an only child that I really kind of found myself shaping myself.
Where did you say you were from?
I'm from upstate New York, from Buffalo, New York.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I grew up in Buffalo at a time where a lot of the war was just over, so a lot of guys were coming up to the north from the south, part of the Great Migration, to get jobs in the steel plants and the state, departments and stuff like that. My parents originally came because my uncle was in the jukebox business, and so he got my dad a job, in the jukebox business. And so when he got out of the army, and so we ended up in Buffalo.
Okay, wonderful. So, what did joy look like in your 20s and 30s?
Okay, all right. Joy as a teenager was like, I was a cheerleader. Okay. I was voted the most popular girl in my senior class. I didn't think I deserved it. It wasn't until I was 40 that's something I had to work through, because I thought I was an imposter, because I thought the reason why I was voted the most popular girl in the class was because all the parties were at my house. And I thought, well, people like me because they come to my parties. And it wasn't until much, much, much later that I realized people like me because of me. It didn't have anything to do, with that kind of situation. So I had this kind of very normal, happy, cheerleader going to football games. I dated the captain of the, really want to, one of those little textbook things, right? So I dated the captain of the football team, and I was a cheerleader, because I was following in my mama's tracks. Because my mama was a cheerleader, and my father was the captain of the football team.
Way.
Yeah, and so I just thought, that's I thought that's what you did. I went to Iowa, which was the worst mistake in my life in my 20s and late 20s. I really thought I was going to marry the captain of the football team in Iowa, which was so far in fantasy. But so in my 20s, so I came from this kind of pretty idyllic childhood. In my 20s, I would say I was a product of the time. I was a product of the 60s. So in my 20s, I decided I wanted to be an artist. After several other attempts to be some other things in college, I was going to be a public relationist because that's what my parents thought would be a good idea. But I flunked the typing test because I typed -7 words a minute, and you couldn't get into the journalism school if you couldn't type. But I hadn't taken typing because I was also a feminist when I was in high school, and I took shop. I didn't want to take typing and be a secretary, so I still type really quite horribly today. Thank God for voice dictation. But so I was gonna, so I couldn't be a journalism major, and I was gonna be a sociologist, but I flunked the race and ethnic relations class. I was the only ethnic person in the class. Iowa was one of the most racist places I've ever been, and I was gonna go into theater, but they kept giving me the role of maids. So I ended up deciding that I was going to be an artist. I was going to live the life of an artist. I saw somebody walking across the campus one day, and her name was Cassandra Kaufman, and she had this flowing hair and this taffeta polka dot dress, and I said, "Ooh, who is she? Who is she? What does she do?" And they said, "Oh, she's an artist." I said, "Okay, I'll be an artist." I got myself kicked out of school because they wouldn't let me. My parents, of course, wouldn't let me drop out of school to be an artist. So I looked in the rule book to find out what was the one thing that would get me kicked out of school for a quarter or so I could go to New York to be an artist. And it said petty theft or something. So I broke into the school cafeteria, and I made ice cream sundaes for everybody on my floor, and I gave cigarettes to all the smokers, and they suspended me for a quarter. So in my 20s, I spent going to New York, trying to understand what it was like to be an artist, and I don't know how much of this I should tell, but I went to New York, and I was with my friend, and so he went a month before me, and then I got to New York, and I was kind of, he was showing me around, and I kept saying, "Oh, this is great! There are all these good-looking guys around here, and this is fun, and everybody's dancing and having a really good time." And then this guy came up to me, and he said, he said, "You don't know where you are," and I said, "No, I don't." He said, "You're in a gay bar, and Gary, your friend, is gay." And I said, "Yeah, I know he's happy, because it wasn't a big thing then. It's like, I know he's happy." He said, No, he has sex with men." I went, "Oh, no, yeah." And so anyway, I ended up spending about 6 months in New York hanging out with gay people and having a great time because I could tell my mother that I was not sexually active, because she was, when I went to college, my father told me that it took 4 years to get a degree, not 9 months. So I was like really into being, heating them. And so I had a great time in New York, just going to the Village and going to parties and hanging out in the East Village and something happened there that kind of really shaped my life in terms of what excellence was. And that was one night I was kind of running around the Village and I walked past the Negro Ensemble. And at the Negro Ensemble, Jean Genet's The Blacks was playing. And the cast was Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, Maya Angelou, Roscoe Lee Brown, and two other people that were just incredible. I mean, it was like the creme de la creme. And I just sat there and watched and fell in love. I just said, I really want to create, work that has this kind of power. But also I didn't like being poor in New York, so and I was eating cat food with tomato sauce on it because you can make little meatballs out of it, and you can pretend it's meatballs, and you put and you take the cat food and you put the tomato sauce over it, and you close your eyes and pretend.
That's wild.
Yeah, and it didn't. The pretend didn't work very well. You were eating cat food. So I went back to Iowa, and this is my 20s. I went back to Iowa, and after 4 years, I didn't have a degree. I had a 2.4 average. Ooh. Right, because I was being an artist, right, and it was cold. And I didn't want to go to them classes in the cold, and it was much better to sit around with people from the writers' workshop and pretend that we were intellectuals or something. So I knew I had to get a degree. So instead of getting a BA, which I had not really prepared myself for or studied, I got married. So I had an MRS. So I went home with some initials. When I came back to Buffalo, and I had these initials. And then I convinced my parents that the University of Buffalo wasn't going to accept my credits, and that's why I had to do 2 more years of undergraduate. So I did 2 years of undergraduate. I pulled a 4-point, so that I could, prove that I was now a responsible human being. Was dutifully married during those 2 years of the 4-point, and and the ritual of coming home and cooking dinner and doing all those things and studying really helped me just to focus on my studying. So I studied, I graduated, and then went to graduate school. So my 20s I spent in college, experimenting with who I was. I was part of the 60s, so I was a member of SDS because I wanted to go down south for the civil rights, and my parents wouldn't let me go down south.
What is SDS?
Student for Democratic Society.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
They were the anti-war people.
Okay.
All right. We levitated the Pentagon. We really thought we did. We all went to Washington. We went, and we swore that the Pentagon levitated. Right. Right. I was at Woodstock. I did copiously amount of drugs and LSD and stuff like that. I was part of the 60s. I was, I was like Forrest Gump. So wherever something was happening, I was there. I was curious. I wanted to see what it was, right? So then I started teaching, so that was the 20s, and then when I turned 39, we had this big 30. We had a big snowstorm in Buffalo, and I decided I wanted to leave, and I couldn't stand the snow anymore. I was going to go. So I was throwing the I Ching at that time, and the I Ching told me, he kept saying, "You're in the abyss. You're in the abyss." And I kept saying, I know. But then one day it said, it behooves you to cross the great mountains. So I applied for all these schools to teach that were on the other side of the mountain, and I ended up in Evergreen.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. So you threw I Ching,
yes,
and I Ching said, "Go for the mountains," and that's how you ended up here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm loving every bit of the story. But go ahead.
Okay, so I ended up here, and I met Dr. Mims, and I was 32 at the time, and I'm 78 now. So that began, our relationship began way back there. And I came to Evergreen. I came to Olympia. It was really white. It was really, really white. And I said, I don't know if crossing the mountains, I don't know where I need to go. And everybody kept saying, wait till you meet Maxine Mims. Wait till you meet Maxine Mims. You'll want to stay. So we're in a restaurant. All of a sudden I see all these heads turn, and then I see this lady in the doorway with this red sweatsuit with this huge boa and these unbelievable boots of Spanish leather. And I said, who is that? And they said, that's Maxine Mims. I said, I want to be her. All right, so I keep seeing these women walking through I want to be. So I wanted to be her. So I took the job at Evergreen. And she said, we played Monopoly one night. I was staying at her house and with her daughter Kenneth and with her daughter Tony and Kenneth and Teddy, her 2 kids. And we were playing Monopoly, and I'm real ruthless at Monopoly. I'm very ruthless. I become a slum landlord. I build hotels and condominiums and slum buildings on Baltic. I'm not a nice Monopoly. And she saw me play Monopoly, and she said, I want you to be my heir apparent. She said, I want.
wow.
I like the way you work this thing. I'm gonna train you, and you're gonna take over, and you're gonna take over my school. Wow. So that was in my 30s, and so I think the big thing when I'm in my 30s, I made my transition from white to black. Because during my 20s, essentially when I was doing my little bippy and hippie thing and stuff like that, my entire world was white.
Wow.
Because my first husband, Thomas Frederick, was white. But Olympia was too white. It got too white, and I taught there for 4 years, and I realized my soul was dying. I was realizing that I was self-medicating. I was drinking more than when I was how I'd been taught. My father taught me how to drink, and he taught me what combinations to take, what kind of spacing to do. Told me as soon as I heard a slur in my voice, that was it. And I was hearing slurs in my voice at 10 o'clock in the morning because I had a bottle of Dickel in my whiskey in my bag in order to kind of deal with the microaggressions. I would be in the library and other faculty would walk by and say, "Oh, you can read," So it was just all of those things and just like being very, very kind of lost and really lonely. And so in fact, there was a documentary made about it, and it was on PBS Channel 9 called "A Soul Comes Home." And the title was, "This is a story of Joy Hardiman, a 36-year-old woman who had achieved success in the white world but felt her soul was dying." And yeah. Cleve Tyson worked on that from Seattle, and Teresa Stone at the time, and so they wanted to produce something for Black History Month that demonstrated the important examples of people giving back to the community. And I had made this decision that I was going to use my talents in the Black community. I had been teaching theater at Evergreen, and I had a very successful theater troupe, and we went to Green Hill Prison. And this guy came up to me, one of the guards, and he said to me, "Wow, you are very good. The kids you're working with are highly disciplined. They know what they're doing. And he said, too bad you didn't put your energy, or you haven't put your energy into young Black boys like are in this prison, because maybe they wouldn't be here." And that was like, whoa, okay, I need to shift. I need to re-image. I need to look at my whole life. So I went through this deprogramming process with Maxine. And she made me, we went to New York, and I got a whole new wardrobe because all I had was Birkenstocks before. And then her son tried to teach me how to walk in heels, which I still don't do heels. But it was a whole transition, and I only ate Black food, and I only went to Black restaurants, and I only started dating Black men, and the whole thing like that. So that was my 30s.
That sounds like Drop Squad.
Drop Squad?
Drop Squad is a movie.
Oh, okay. Well, I gotta watch the movie then. Yeah, it was a very interesting experience. I lived in a teepee during it, and in order to cleanse myself, do a detoxification. But I'm bougie.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem. So I had this beautiful teepee, and I had a wooden floor. I had a friend help me build a wooden floor, and I had a Persian rug, and then it had a bed in it, and it had a desk that was color-coded with the bed, and a little typewriter. Right, like I could really type. I had a little typewriter on the thing, and I would wake up in the morning, and I'd go out of the teepee, and I'd build my fire because I went to teepee camporee, and I can do those. I got those skills. And I would put a little thing on it, and I would have my little coffee, and I would sit out and watch the Oyster Bay and just really be peaceful. And then I would turn around to the back of the teepee and walk maybe about 100 yards, and Maxine's house was right there. And I'd go in her house, and I'd take a bath in the bathtub, and I'd make some food on the thing, and then I'd go back and be in nature. So I did that for about 3 months, and I really kind of like did a lot of cleansing in my head, like kind of recommitting myself to the community. That's when I got involved in the Pan-African movement. Maxine and I went to New York, and we met Doc Ben and John Henry Clark and Ben Surdima and and ASCAC, the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization, was just starting, and Maxine came in and announced that she was there and that she had money to fund it all. And they said, "Oh, we want you to be on our board." And she says, "I have no time, but take her." And so pushed me out. Just kind of went and said, "Okay, I'll be the secretary for all of you people in this organization." So also at that point, I also had a child. And that was the third kind of critical turning point for myself, because when the son was born, she was so beautiful, and people kept saying, "Oh, you look just like her," and then I could say, "Oh, I must be beautiful too," because I hadn't seen my beauty, because I had taken in a lot of external images. It was during the time, if you were dark-skinned, you didn't get as much when you were dark-skinned, you thought you didn't get as much play as the light-skinned girls, if your hair wasn't, So I had all of those different things. But what I learned was I had been looking at a part and not the whole. Because if I'd looked at all the people who said I was beautiful and had remembered them, I wouldn't have had to wait so long to realize, hey, but better late than never.
Right.
Is what I say. So that was my 30s. So my 30s was my 20s were kind of being out there. My 30s were kind of like coming to terms with who and what I was and what I wanted to do, and my commitment to the black community, and my commitment to my child, and my commitment to myself. So then the 40s, I started with a lot of intentionality. I ended up being the director of the Tacoma campus. I came in with 4 goals. By this time, I wasn't doing theater anymore, because I got hired at Evergreen when I was in the 30s for theater, but Maxine told me that I couldn't teach theater on the Tacoma campus because everybody thinks black people just sing and dance. Mm-hmm. And that I had a classical discipline. I had been trained in Western classical literature when I was white. Mm-hmm. So I had studied everything from the Greeks to Shakespeare, and I knew it really well. I was a Chaucerian scholar, probably, because I saw a job one time where it says they were looking for Chaucerian scholars. So that's what I majored in, and that job never occurred ever again in the universe. Nobody wanted a Chaucerian scholar, but I knew it. So what happened was, Maxine. This was in my going to my 40s. Maxine said I had to teach Western classical literature. So I found a book that said that Egyptian literature was the prototypic basis of Western classical literature, and that everything that was in Western classics had also been in the Nile Valley civilization. So coupling with my work we were doing in ASCAC, I went back to get my PhD in ancient Egyptian literary studies and urban education. So I've got the activism going on here, I've got the personal development going on here, and I've got the being supported by the school and the ancestors. And that's when I realized that ancient wisdoms could be used in contemporary times. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've done now ever since I started that work. I've looked for different ways to apply ancient Egyptian philosophies, ancient Egyptian practices, ancient Egyptian rituals, to our contemporary lives as black people. Mm-hmm. And so my dissertation, which I did at Evergreen, was to look at the ancient Egyptian autobiography. And the ancient Egyptian autobiography is not about sin and guilt and shame and blame like the Western society is. Mm-hmm. It's about lessons learned and wisdom earned from the hills and valleys of one's life. And that's transformative. I taught autobiography from that perspective at Evergreen for 10 years. And it allowed people to not be victims, but to be victors. Because no matter what came at them, if they learned from it and could pass it on and use it to make sure it didn't happen again, or that if it happened, there'd be a different kind of understanding, then you were a victor, And so that's what I was doing during my 40s, was kind of studying that and then trying to live my life according to the values of the ancient Egyptians. George G.M. James talks about, I put myself essentially, because remember I'm an only child, so I can't just go in my head and have a good time. I put myself through the ancient Egyptian mystery school. I worked very intentionally on controlling my thought, controlling my action, articulating a purpose, being steadfast in the execution of that, recognizing a higher order, something bigger than oneself that guides oneself, working on freedom from resentment. That was really a hard one. Resentment from prosecution. After 40 years in higher education, I had to work on resentment really, really hard. Really hard. Ability to know your teacher, ability to be taught, and willingness to accept change and initiation. So I worked on those really steadily as a person while I was going through my 50s, and on my 60th birthday I gave myself a graduation party at Marcia's house. I invited everybody and said, I just graduated from the mystery school, and I just want you all to come and say, yay. So, so I was doing that, and I was, being a mom, being a mom, raising a child in an extended family, kind of situation with aunties and uncles that, really were very supportive of me and her nurturing and my not knowing anything. Because I didn't know anything about raising no baby, right? What is that? Gone with the Wind. Miss Scott, I don't know nothing about raising no babies, But I didn't, because when I grew up, now I know this will sound really bougie, but I never got a chance to babysit. The only thing I got a chance to babysit was that one of my friends who was a doctor, his mother would his wife would sometimes call me to babysit coats, fur coats, because when the ladies came. This is a really snotty group of people these were not my mother's friends. This was someone we knew. But she would have parties, and the fur coats that had to be, because the sables couldn't touch the so-and-so, and maybe something was a muskrat, and it was stupid. But they hired me, and they paid me, and I just went and sat in a room and watched coats. So it was a far jump from coats to a real life baby. How do I deal with her? It was like I just didn't know anything. But I had good friends. I had good friends and real support. So I managed to raise to nurture a halfway brilliant person.
Your daughter is brilliant.
All right, okay, a brilliant person. Yes, I have to stop saying that. That's one of the intentionalities I'm working on. We were talking a little about language. Western society causes you to diminish, and I notice how often I use the word little. And so she isn't slightly brilliant or a little brilliant. She's brilliant.
She's brilliant.
I'm not doing a little interview with a brilliant woman named Nicola. I'm doing an extraordinary historical interview. So I have to catch myself when I diminish.
Yeah, we all do.
Right.
We all do. Joy, so I am just enthralled in your story. You're a beautiful storyteller. One of the themes that I hear is how often you are led and you actually are obedient to hearing calls and following them. I mean, it happened when you were tossing I Ching and you were like, I gotta get up out of here. It happened when you saw Dr. Mims and you were like, I gotta have that. I gotta be that. When you saw the lady in the polka dots, right? So it sounds, when I hear it, it sounds like it's something that is very easy for you, but for some of us it's not. What is the thing that has facilitated your ability to hear a call that is going to take you to a greater place, and then your willingness to be obedient to that call?
Good question. I think I'll tell you this way. My connection with the ancestors happened when I started doing my research. And
which research?
My ancient Egyptian research.
And how old were you again?
Then that was in my late 30s, early 40s.
Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I've always had I've not known, but I guess I've always known that I was blessed with a strong spiritual connection. Mm-hmm. I mean, the first time I knew there was a greater being was when I was in Connecticut on one of these trips when I was in middle school, and I felt God. I was in the middle of a forest, and I was in a glade and in the forest, and this light came through, and it was just. I all of a sudden I knew there was a creative spirit, and it felt warm, and it felt like, that it was a calmness and a peace that I didn't know, and certainly as a preteen with all my hormones, I didn't know any calmness, but it was just this little piece of calmness. And so I've always kind of felt connected with my ancestors, but it was only after I started doing research and understanding about what ancestors were, mm-hmm. and understanding that in fact our time that there are different that it's possible to live in the past, present, and the future all at one time, mm-hmm. and that spirits who leave us don't really leave us, mm-hmm. and so I was never really had to deal with death as a finality, because my mother didn't deal with death at all. Our family didn't deal with death. Mm-hmm. When someone died in our community, we never went to the funerals. We went to their houses. Our job was to watch the house when the funeral was going on, so that nobody would rob it. Because that would happen, in the cities, people would look at the obituaries, and they would know when the funerals were, and then they would come and rob your houses. So in the South, there were people called house sitters, and they were families that just came and sat in the house while the funeral was gone, and when the funeral people came, helped serve the food and left. So I never got to see. I wasn't until I was in my 55 or so that I ever saw a dead body. So the notion of death was not something that was weighing upon me. So it was really easy for me to understand that when someone died, their physical body died, but their spiritual body, their soul, their memory stayed with us. So that's a good question. I don't know when. I just know that that the ancestors are with me, and I know when I don't listen, they can be rough. They can be rough. This is a horrible thing to say. My ancestors, when I don't listen, they draw blood. Ooh. My first real encounter with my coming to the ancestors wrongly was when I was in my 40s or 50s, and I went to Goree Island. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I went there like a whole bunch of people went there with this whole tragic thing. I wanted to feel the pain. I wanted to feel the agony. I wanted to feel the lash.
Can you say a little bit about Goree Island for folks?
Yeah. Goree Island was one of the dungeons, one of the demarcation destinations and dungeons where enslaved people were taken from both the coast and the inland of Africa and put on boats and shipped across the sea for the Middle Passage. And so all along West African coast, as well as East Africa and Mombasa and stuff like that, there are these holding pens. There are these, they call them castles, but they were dungeons. They were places of infinite horror. Mm-hmm. And people sometimes would be there packed in little tiny caves for up to 6 months, waiting to be put on a boat and taken away to someplace in the Americas. So the most significant ones on the west are in Senegal, Goree Island, mm-hmm. and then in Ghana, Cape Coast. Mm-hmm. And so I was in Goree, and I went there, and I was dressed in white like all the people, and we got there, and women started crying, and people were all emotionally moved, and I wasn't moved at all. And I thought, okay, I'm too intellectual. I've been working in academia too long. So I went where they kept the rebellious people. because I figured I would have been there. I just would have. And I didn't feel anything, because I wanted to feel this pain, and so I went to the door of no return, and I stood in the door of no return. That's the door that they shoved people out and put them on the boats, and I didn't feel anything. And I got on the boat to go back, and I turned around. I went to see the land one more time to make sure I felt nothing. I turned around. There was a bulkhead on the bulkhead on the ship thing. I tripped over the steel bulkhead. I fell on the cement deck. I cut my leg open, and all of a sudden I heard this voice, saying, "Pain? You want to feel pain? We'll give you pain." And I realized that my intentions and my worldview were totally wrong, that I should not have come there with the tragedy, but I should have come with the triumph. I should have come back and said, "Hey, y'all, you didn't know what happened to your children. I want you to know, some of us made it.
Yeah.
Some of us made it across the passage. And not only did we make it, not only did, even though they tried to tear our families apart, we found ways to have parents, we found ways to have family. Even though they told us we couldn't read or write, I have a PhD. I just want you to know that we have defied things." And so at that point, that totally changed my worldview. And from that point on, I have always seen the glass as half full and not half empty. I have always, decided, let me look at this as an asset and not as a deficit. I have always said, the other side of pain, is joy and release. And so my ancestors, are very clear with me when I'm off track. So I acknowledge them and I thank them and they guide me. And I know, I remember one time I was whining about, I want to be a writer, and I kept going to all these people who do divinations and saying, "Oh, tell me what I need to write. Tell me how I need to be," and the answer was always some version of, "It's inside you. The answer's not outside of you. The answer's inside of you." It was always a different version of it. Except one time in Brazil, when I said, "Give me a orisha, give me a little something, I can take home and put on my desk and be able to write," and they gave me a little statue of a little pink Moses. Which is like you are trying to work in the wrong realm. You're trying to think about writing as laws and stuff like that. It has nothing to do with you. And finally, they got really mad at me. And when I was in Haiti, I asked the diviner, "Well, how can I write?" And then basically the ancestor told me, "Use it or lose it."
They don't like it when you ask them about stuff that you already know. No, I've noticed that too.
Yeah. No, they don't. They really don't. So now I listen. I really listen. I listen to the wind. Because what I believe also is that the ancestors left us signs and symbols that will allow us to come back home. And we just have to see them. We just have to be open to them, and sometimes it can be a song at the right moment. Sometimes, like I said, it can be something that happen in nature. Sometimes it can be a touch, somehow, but like the Sankofa. There are two symbols with the Sankofa. One is a bird, and the other is a heart. And a lot of people pay attention to the bird, but not the heart.
Ooh.
Because what the Sankofa, by putting those two together, what the Sankofa is saying, go back and fetch it. But it is the intelligence of the heart.
Ooh.
Right. And that there's a reason why those two symbols are together. Because one's a Khan, and it's really about 14th, 15th, 16th century. The heart is from the Green Sahara, so it's about 6,000 years old. Right. In fact, Tony Broder found images of the heart in Nubia, pre-dynastic Egypt. He found a heart on the wall of one of the temples of Nubia, and if you go back to the Green Sahara, you see the divine goddess is shaped like a heart. So it says if we want to get out of this mire that we're in, we have to get away from head intelligence and go to heart intelligence. So it's right there. It's like you ever see this movie called Brother from Another Planet?
I don't think I've seen it.
I've
heard of it, but
Joe Morton was in it, and he's this guy who drops down to Earth, and he's escaping from an enslaved colony up in space, and he's chased by these little men who look like they're like they're little nasty dogs, and they run like this. And at one point, at the very end of the movie, they're chasing him, and he is running down the street, and he keeps seeing this graffiti, and he starts reading the graffiti. And the graffiti is telling him which way to go and how to go. And he ends up into a maroon county, and the dogs come running in, and there are all these people just standing there, and the dogs run away. So I think our ancestors have been leaving us symbols like that all the time, and we just need to be aware of them, and we just need to access them. And I just offer myself as proof of the fact that it works. It's not scary. It's not hocus pocus. It's just it's us. It's us. It's our genetic memory. It's our genetic memory. It's a symbolic stuff, and it's a fact. As Marsha's book talks about how we were missed, and I think what understanding our ancestors tell us that we're being cared for. That we're being missed, but we are being embraced, and so when that gives me light in times of darkness.
Beautiful. So, what is joy looking like for you right now?
I am having so much fun with my life right now. After I proclamated myself from the higher education plantation. After 45 years, I got my walking papers. I said, I got it, man. I got my badge as a higher education survivor. I returned to my art. I published a book. I've been telling a story about the blinding of truth by falsehood for many, many years. I decided to turn it into a book, actually with the urging of Marsha, who kept saying, "That's a great story. Come on, put it out as a book." And it has opened the gates for so many things. In order to write the book about finding truth, I had to examine my own truth. I had to understand all the falsehoods that I had in fact been carrying with me, and I had to figure out how to get rid of them so I could write the book about how to get rid of them. So the book is both a story about bringing truth back into the world, but it's also a manual about how to keep truth there, and how to keep it in it. And part of that has been my making decisions about my life. Like, for example, I decided that I was going to live in Mexico 4 months out of every year. That I was going to follow the sun. That I deserved it. I mean, and that I had to move beyond. See, I paint when the winter comes, I paint my nails yellow.
Yes.
So that every morning I wake up and I have the sun. And I decided that wasn't enough. I had to have the real sun. So I go to Mexico, and I work on my health, my happiness, and my gratitude. And that's my mantra every day. The book has taken me to amazing places. I don't do book readings anymore because that's flat, and I'm really into multi-dimensionality and occupying as many different spaces as I can. And so I do book performances. So I read the book, and I get in, and I channel the ancestors, and I get people call and response, and I take it to church.
That's right. And let's look at this book too. It is gorgeous.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Yeah,
Isn't it gorgeous?
And it's, say the title again?
The Raw Surrection of Truth from the Chains of Falsehood. And it's really important, the word raw. I use it intentionally as opposed to re. Re means to turn back in the same place. All right, so return, I'm coming back to where I started. Renaissance, I'm being born again in exactly the same place I was. You can think of all those words with re. But re is also name for Ra, the sun. Only in Kemetic places R-E with a little mark over the E. So what if we Ra turned? All right, and so instead of turning around like that, we turned around like that. What if if instead of retreating, we Ra treated? You know, and so it's like I no longer say I'm an African descendant. I say I'm an African ascendant.
Yeah.
Ascended. I'm ascending. Each generation is ascending. All right, and so that's what I meant by the book is that we have to resurrect our relationship with the sun that creates itself daily. All right, that completes itself daily.
Yes.
So in doing that book, it has allowed me to go into all these different areas and different spaces, and my weeks start to quench my thirst for the very diverse. You know, I mean, like just this week, the book took me to Snohomish County, and I did a reading and workshop with the book with black women leaders who are very isolated there and have fears and have barriers, and use the book as a way to kind of unite. I think the theme was unite to reunite. And of course, I said unite. Right, so I did that, and then now today, I'm having this incredible conversation with you, and then tomorrow I'm going to go into a recording studio, and I'm going to work on the audio version of the book, which is something I have never done before, and so the thing that delights me and gives me energy in this in this phase I'm in of my life right now is learning new stuff. So I'm learning new stuff. And then on Tuesday, the book is taking me to Green Hill virtually, and I'm working with the young men in the prisons and using the book with them to figure out what are the myths that got them there, get them to understand what the societal myths and how not to buy in that. Yeah. And then I'm going on the plane, and I'm going to Sacramento, and I'm going to be doing a reading, and I'm going to be doing a panel on the book in terms of black mental health. Okay. And then when I come back, I have 2 libations I'm going to do, which is basically to celebrate all of those resistors who resisted the master narrative and basically ushered in the Wimi Masu, which is the meta nature for new beginnings, the rebirth. So my current life, the book has, by embracing my artist, the book has taken me to all these places, and it really is satisfying because it fulfills the things that give me joy. I love to design. I love to design things. I design whether I'm designing a higher education institutional campus, whether I'm designing an itinerary, whether I'm designing what my house is going to look like. I love doing design, and I love learning new things. So I'm constantly, the book has forced me into this, forced me into a delightful place, of embracing my art, embracing my creativity, and so boldly walking into my 70s as an unapologetic, slightly arrogant, creative, and so it's an evolution and an ascension that is powered, by language and by intention.
Yes. So where can we get this book?
Yes, the book is published by Curry Brothers, 2 brothers, 2 black brothers, and the way you get it is by going to ancestralartworks.com. Ancestral Artworks, that's an S on the end of works.com, and that's my webpage, and there's a link right there for the Curry Brothers, and it's available in hardcover, softcover, and on ebook.
And coming in audiobook, right?
And coming in audiobook. Yes. And then after the audiobook, when I go to San Pancho for the winter, I'm going to work on a workbook and a manual. Okay. That parents can use, that schools can use, that organizations can use. So it's just every day I wake up and there's something new to learn, and another affirmation, that the ancestors are with us, and that the Creator is good, and that this is a good place to be, and as messed up as these times are, it's still good times to be.
Ashe.
Yeah. And I have my intergenerational team that I work with. That's international. This book, the illustrators from Venezuela.
Oh, okay.
The woman who did the proofreading for me is from Nairobi, Kenya.
Okay.
All right, as is my kind of thought partner, Nia Runga.
Yeah.
You know, who kind of is always like, Auntie Joy, now come on, you can go here, and did you think about that? You know.
Yeah.
My copywriter is in Mexico. So I have this international team of like next generation people who are artists and contributors that have just done amazing work, and I get a chance to work with them. You know, and it keeps me alive, and it keeps me alive. It keeps me knowledgeable, in the know, because it keeps me positive, because I can just see the great works that are being done. I can just see, and not great works, the competence. The competence. Look at that big camera. You know, I'm from Buffalo, right next to Rochester, New York. You know, I grew up with Kodak. You know, the little brownie camera. You know, I mean, I can remember my father's first video camera, and I'm looking. You know, wow, what an amazing world. You know,
So good.
and y'all young people know all about it. You know, and have it in your bags and walk around, you know, carrying your stuff. I mean, how exciting.
It's
You know,
so
seriously, how exciting. Says she who comes from the era of the Xerox machine. You know, and I still say, give me a Xerox. Instead when I want a copy, you know, because that's where I'd be from.
Well, yay, Miss Hardiman.
All right. So now we are going into the. Can we turn it? Okay. We're going to go into the joyful inquiry session, followed by a give back. And so in this joyful inquiry session, we get to ask Dr. Joy some questions about the film. Also, I'm going to run this microphone to you because our folks who are viewing virtually will not be able to hear if we're not talking into the mic. Okay, so be sure to talk into the mic. All right, who has questions?
Thank you, Dr. Joy, for this. I have a question that deals with different cultures, and cultures all pass down knowledge to the next generation. In your travels in Asia and Africa, have you encountered some lessons that the elders have passed down wealth to the next generation? Like in America, we need financial education in order to manage our money. But in other cultures, they have different ways of transferring wealth. Cows, cars, gold, fabrics, textiles, how have other cultures passed down the knowledge to the next generation, or has that been a problem in the cultures you visited? This is a problem here.
All right, that's an excellent question. And I think that the cultures that I've studied have basically been African-based cultures. And so they're the ones I'm most familiar with. And I know in African-based cultures, different from Western-based cultures that will measure wealth in terms of accumulation, in terms of money, etc. In African-based countries, your measurement is in your relationships. So one of the wealthiest people in a community might be the griot, because that person had all the knowledge of all the lineage. That person knew whose father was so-and-so and so-and-so. They basically knew who your people were. And so when you came, you brought your people with you, and your people were your wealth. And I think that passing down of the oral tradition may not be as strong now in some of the contemporary cultures I see, but just even the movement of say the name is part of constituting that griot culture. Is to say the name, consistently say the names of the people who are no longer here with them. Say their names so that we do not forget. So we do not forget Emmett Till. So we do not forget Freddie Brown. So we do not forget. And I think that that is a legacy, a continuation of the African tradition of acknowledging the wealth is in the people and in the lives they lead and the memories they create. So that's what I think.
Okay.
Welcome back. Glad you're home. So we heard from the film what brought you here to the Wild Wild West, the ancestors, or you heard the voice of the mountains. What brought you to San Pancho?
Interesting. Okay, so
Give this back.
okay,
I'll give it. Thank you, Shirley. Yes.
thank you, Shirley. Thank you. San Pancho is the little town that I go to in Mexico. It's an hour north of Puerto Vallarta, so it's on the Pacific side. It's not the Cancun side or the Tulum side or it's not the party all night side. Well, my town isn't. There are some towns, Sayulita and Puerto Vallarta, that are the party all night, but it claimed me. That the town actually claimed me. I was there. I was in New Mexico with my friend Lou Rochelle, who has been a traveling buddy of mine, along with several other people, and had traveled to Mexico, and we'd gone to one place, and one of our ways of having adventures, of finding joy, is to get on a bus and just go wherever the bus will take us. So, just say we're on the bus, or ask the bus driver what's interesting on this route. So we were on the bus, and we said, what is interesting? And he said, oh, there's a little town called San Pancho, and it's kind of interesting. And we said, why? And he said, because it has a soul. And we said, oh, okay, a soul. And he said it has a community center, it has a library, it has a focus and a celebration of children. And so we went to this town, and it was an amazing little town. In fact, the artistic director of the Circus of Soleil lived up in the hills of the town with the lifestyle and the rich and famous people. And his way of giving back was to start a circus school in the town for the Mexican kids. And so you see these kids going down the street, and they're doing cartwheels and everything. And I think that they put a little chip in their head when they're born, because when you go by them, you say hello, they all go, hola, hola. Everybody says hola. It's like it's in the water. You drink it, and then you have to say hola for the rest of your life. And this is another one of those ancestral signals. I went to the water because it's a beach town, and I was sitting there, and then I turned to go back, and this huge wave came. I mean, and just drenched me from head to toe. And it was like I was being baptized, and again, signs and symbols from the ancestors. So I said, this is a place that I need to come back because it seems like there's some lessons for me there. And just the rhythm of, in this town, everybody goes to the beach in the night and at sunset. And when the sun sets, they applaud. The people just applaud. They just applaud, and then everybody goes back about their business, back to doing whatever else they're doing, But it was like that appreciation. So I think the ancestors wanted me to have a place of appreciation where I could really sense that and feel that so that I could bring that back. So it's a way of renewing myself, and it's the sun. And if you're following the sun, why not go? I just thought of that. If you're following the sun, why not go to a place where everybody applauds the sunset? So that's where I went to. The sun took me there, Thank you for asking me that.
All right, Miss Salma.
That's right. I'd like to say I'm responsible for all the brilliance that you see in front of you. I don't know. I know she says that she's responsible for me. I did that. So my question is, I know that your background was extremely heavy in theater, but how does that play into the products that you produce now? I know starting when I was young, you were doing the Over 40 Review, which was at Caballeros Club for anybody that is of the age that we were too young to go to Caballeros Club. But I know with Caballeros Club and even with the performances of your book, which is available for sale in the back, just in case anybody would like to know, how does that continue to enhance your joy? And how do you see theater playing a part in the work that you currently do now?
How do I see theater or creativity in my life? Well, a couple levels. One, there's a mantra that I incorporated from my work, my dissertation work, which was declared by Queen Hatshepsut of the 18th dynasty, female pharaoh, who on her temple walls wrote, I take as my sacred duty to restore that which is in ruin and make it more beautiful every day. So once I saw that and realized that that was something that I could get behind, something that I could focus on and connect with, then that meant that I had to be creative. And that meant that because that's what it is, to create every day, is to restore that which is in ruin. So once I decided to do that, I realized I was blessed by being surrounded by amazing artists. Not just intergenerational ones that I had mentioned about, like this young man over here, C.C. Dove, who is one of my young artist accomplices. Brilliant composer and activist. And not only was I surrounded by people like him, but and prompted and created and shaped by my daughter, who I had no help, who styles me, picks up my jewelry, wears my hat, and critiques all my things ferociously. But I was also surrounded by people like Bobby Folder, who is over there in the back, who is an amazing artist out of Portland, who I talk to on the phone, and when I say to him, Bobby, what are you doing? He says, I'm making art. And talks about how his whole life is based around every day waking up in the morning and doing a piece of art. And I have a tendency to say, ooh, wow, I want to do that. Who is that person? I want to do that. So that's what I do, is I try to make art every day. I try to make something tangible more beautiful than before. So... Yeah, so and it just feels to be blessed to be around so many artists like Paul, video artists. I mean, I could name names and name names, but yeah. I find that living the world life as an artist, as someone who, well, like it's a symbol. Ra, the sun is an artist. The sun wakes up in the morning, and it's called Kepper. All right. Oh, right. The symbol for art. I mean, art is so black. I mean, it's like the symbol for art is a dung beetle. All right. And a dung beetle basically crawls into murda, crawls into feces, and creates life. Like making a way out of no way. I call it the Chitlin principle. I mean, it's ingrained. How do you take something and turn it around and make it more beautiful before? And all we have to do is look at the enslaved position or antebellum South, and find out what kind of creations were made by people who were artists, who were not enslaved but who were art people. So our ancestors described art as restoration. So when you go into a court, Shirley, and you play that law so well that the image of that young person that's there has changed from a shiftless person to be feared, but somebody's child who is innocent. That's being an artist. I mean, when we go into the classrooms, when we take our kids who are crying because somebody called them a name and told them that they were ugly and they had, big lips or something, and we shape that around so those lips are able to make beautiful tenor sounds, and everybody in the classroom and the family comes and applauds those lips. That's being an artist. So, and that's restoring that. Which is ruined, and making it more beautiful than before. Well, thank you, Mr. Bobby, about how we, can make that way out of no way every day, every time, every moment.
All right. Thank you. Yep. Right here first.
Thank you for the beautiful presentation. That was wonderful. My question is, can you explain your thought process prior to going into Green Hill to work with the young men, and what transpired while there and what you took after you left?
Excellent question. I have to admit that going into the prisons or going into the juvenile justice system, I never quite took really seriously. I'd done it, In fact, Maxine and I one time went into a prison in Oregon, and this is right when we were really into our Power of the People nationalist stage, and we told them, "Y'all, kings and queens, fight for your freedom!" And there was a riot the next week. I realized at that point I needed to be really careful about what I was saying when I went into those situations. So I think before, particularly working with the young men in Green Hill, I think I had many falsehoods about who they were and how they got there, a whole bunch, and even who was there. And so when I walked in, they were kind enough to teach me. I guess I passed whatever, God loves fools and good-hearted people. I mean, they knew that I was not a horrible person and that, maybe I just didn't know some stuff. So they were willing to teach me. And I got to have a lot of respect for them. I got to have a lot of anger at the justice system. A lot of anger at people who would label them. I felt a lot of sadness because their environments were not like mine at all, and I realized how privileged I was. So I had to do a lot of reflection on myself and my values and where I got it from, and on societies, and try to make decisions about what was the best way I could teach. And what I realized the best way I could teach was to listen, and give feedback, but that they knew directions and answers. And in fact, one young man, JJ, JJ kind of took me under my wings. I guess he felt sorry for me, but he gave me one of the stories that's in the book. Yeah, and it was a story from a Cherokee story about the two wolves. And JJ said, he said, listen, once upon a time there was a grandfather, and grandfather was talking to the grandson, and the grandfather said, inside of each of us there are two wolves. One that is peaceful, one that is open-hearted, one that is eager to embrace, and then there's another wolf that wants to destroy, who wants to extinguish everything. And the young grandson said to the grandfather, "So which wolf wins?" And the grandfather said, "The one that's fed." And JJ talked to me. He said, what you have to do is help change the diet, of the mental diet. You know, that's if we have to stop feeding the wolf that's going to get us in solitary all the time. We got to figure out that wolf that'll give us the privileges that we need to get, the places we need to go. So I came away with a humbled respect for some of the young men that were there, a mother's sadness at the talent, the possibilities that are being squashed, and a sense of excitement when I see the work of people like the Black Prisoners Caucus. You know, I tell the Black Prisoners Caucus all over the country now. You know, and so so going and doing the prison work gave me stories to tell about atonement. You know, about reconciliation, about truth. So it has been life changing. Life changing.
Okay, so we're going to take one more question after this one.
So this requires a recognition and a preface. First of all, Dr. Mims, thank you for every skill set and every belief and everything that you had in the young lady back then and now this lady that sits in front of us today. And Salma, thank you for sharing your beautiful mother with the world. And also, it's for me as a male to see African American women and be in a situation where I can learn. It's a really cool thing, especially not being grown up having that, or not even seeing African American women as powerful leaders, or sometimes even mothers. So it's a beautiful thing. I had the pleasure of recording your audiobook. Before was there once upon a time, there was the first time, and the first time was called Septepi, right? I heard that 100 times. But to watch her act this out was really cool, which leads me to the question. When we, as African Americans, or even whatever culture, have that opportunity, right, to take the stage, but we also have the power to demonstrate what it means to be inclusive and show what diversity means. How can this book help other cultures understand this philosophy of basically coming out of darkness into the light, and other, similar kind of analogies?
Okay. All right. If I'm understanding your question correctly, even though this book comes from a very, very, very deep respect and deep thought, respect for African deep thought, does it have universal applications? Okay. Yes, because what we're talking about, because the book comes from a world. Okay, the book starts with, before there was once upon a time, there was the first time. All right, and what it means is, before there was chaos, there was mayat. Some religions and stuff say in the beginning everything was evil and bad, and then things got a little better, but not really. African fact says no. In the beginning there was balance, there was order, correlation between the spiritual and there was abundance. So that's worldview. And even though it may came from the African land and base and experience, it's worldview, and worldview can be adopted by a whole bunch of people. I think a lot of people are learning in this particular time of chaos that we're living in is just because it's skin doesn't mean it's kin. All right? And so sometimes somebody with a worldview, all right, doesn't have to necessarily be a deeply melanin person. They can basically be somebody who's into relationship, who's into truth, who's into justice, who's into reciprocity, who's into being an ally, an abolitionist or whatever, those kind of terms are. But the book says, do you value it? See, I'm somebody who believes in culture, not necessarily race, because race is a socially constructed thing. And so all these divisions we have were basically political decisions made by people who wanted to rule a world. All right, and so I can't give them the power of playing into their racial kind of, I'm not going to give them that kind of power. So I got to go culture. So I go culture, and it's like, if you can have the value systems, if you're working on controlling your thought, if you're working on controlling your action, you're working on connecting with some spiritual power, then I want to talk to you. Then this book can help you. But if you're somebody who sees the world as fatalistic, of things instead of seeing things as life, death, and rebirth, which is what I learned about in the prison system, about rebirth, and that's what I work with a lot of the guys. It's not life, birth, death, but it's life, birth, rebirth, resurrection, the idea of being able to reconstitute yourself. If you believe in that, then this book can be really helpful because it can give you a location. It can acknowledge you as a resistor, because we have to be acknowledged as resistors. We have to be acknowledged as people who will see the dominant discourse and say, no, that's not right. That's not right. Stop it. And everyone has to, and that's a universal thing, and it is happening universally. If you kind of like look at the world globally, you can see where there are people who are saying, we're sick of transactional behavior. We want relational behavior, and we will, in some cases, die for it. And so I think the book, I see the struggle of the book as a universal struggle. And I see the answer to the book is by adopting, a worldview, that's built on both and not on either or. And that's where it becomes important on a global thing, because it's not a matter of both and, either or. It really is a matter of both and beyond, because 1 + 1 = 3. And I think we should all go for the 3. Yeah.
Thank you. So that session, that last couple of questions went a little longer than I anticipated. So what I would like to do, because we have a limited time for recording, is go into the give back session. And then after the give back, there'll be an opportunity to commune and snack for a few. And then we can ask and answer some more questions then.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I just really want to acknowledge Sandy Daniels. You mentioned snack. And I just really wanted to thank Sandy for preparing this amazing kind of repast for us and stuff like that. So, right. I just called her from Mexico and said, Sandy, there's black folk, we need food. And so she helped, and I appreciate that.
It was an honor. And I will tell you, there were 2 alumni. Thank you, Joy. It was an honor. Okay, so I just want to tell you, at a moment's notice, I called 2 alumni, and I said, hey, I'm running a little behind. Can you help me put this together? Called Coretta. She said, 5 or 10 minutes out. I said, I'm 5 or 10 minutes out. She said, okay, I'm coming. And also before that, Stella Halalauni came, and she cleaned up all the fruit. And she said, what do you need done? did it. So she was here as well, but she had to leave to get herself cleaned up. But I want everyone to know, when you call alumni, they come, or when I call them, they do. Anyway, like when you call me, I come, okay? You taught us well. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to do my best to describe what a give back looks like. This is actually a practice that you created. So thank you so much for giving our community this way of appreciating folks who are sharing. So that's what it is. I would love it if everyone in the room gave back to Dr. Joy about, it could be something related to the film, or it could be about the ways that Dr. Joy has shown up for you and contributed to your personhood. And it's just an opportunity to love on you some more. I want you to be filled when you walk out of this door, because you fill us all the time. So thank you for that. I'm just going to pass the mic around. We can come back if we need to.
No, my name is Regina, and I was in the class of 2006. And I didn't think that going to school was something I could do. And when I got here, the first person that spoke to me was you. And after you, it was Kim Washington. And after Kim Washington, she had me to present Dr. Mims to our class. And I said, I was going to say it, and she yelled at me and said, no, this woman is powerful. You have to speak with conviction. And by the time she finished that, saying all that to me, I was able to do it. And it wouldn't have happened had it not been for you at the start. So I could not, and I don't get out much anymore because of my arthritis. But I had to be here tonight because you are part of my life now. And I appreciate you. And that's all I want to say.
So thank you so much. I'm going to ask y'all to lovingly keep it to 45 seconds so we can get as many folks in as possible. So make it powerful and show.
Okay. Dr. Joy, Mother Joy, Sister Joy, I believe you are all of that to me. I met you when I was 16. Red Rose Cotillion, the statuesque woman comes in, so theatrical-like, and I said, she's coming over here. I had a Foxy Brown shirt on. I said, she's going to tell me to take it off. She came over and said, don't you know you're Foxy? I immediately was already turning it around inside out. You've been in my life to help me turn my life around. That time when I was 16, then when I came back and you put me out of school because I was over 16 credits, it's time to go. Then I came back and worked for you and things happened. It was time for me to go. And each time I grew, and I'm still here and you're still there. And I'm coming to your porch next week and we will have our conversations. Thank you. Thank you for loving me. Love you.
Hey, what's up, dude? I'm just really proud of the person that I've seen you grow into. You have fully embraced your artist, your weirdness. You have really grown into, and it's crazy to say my mother has grown into this person, right? But you have always been someone that I admire, but you have become someone that that inspires me, and I'm proud to call you my mother and my best friend. So, holla at your girl.
We're going to go back here real quick. Bobby, do you want?
I don't need this.
Oh, you do? No, because the internet people.
Oh, yeah, the internet people. I know they did that to me once before, and I was like, what internet people? I'm just, I'm happy to have a friend that would prompt me to get out of my funk in my city where we get treated hellaciously, not rawlaciously. And so it was nice to be able to hop on the train and come up here and watch you be honored.
Joy, you know me, I've got something to do. But I will say this. She was in a documentary that I did last October. She's in a current documentary called Take Me With You, Gifts from the Elders. She'll be featured with Dr. Mims, Ramona Bennett, Marsha, lots and lots of people. Here's the thing, though. About a year and a half ago, I was just chilling out at home. I hadn't seen Dr. Hardiman in probably, 20 years. And out of nowhere, my mind clicked. I called her. I was on her front porch, and next thing you know, here we go, And I just think that for me, it's been a blessing going all the way back to 1995 when my stepmother, Ramona Bennett, sent me to you and to Dr. Mims. And when you look at the passing of life, I was 24 years old. I'm 52 now. And that's a blessing to know anybody that long. And to think of the impact that you, Dr. Mims, but it's about you right now, that you've had on people that have branched that out into the world. And we know what it's like to be educated, not to act educated, and to understand patience with other people and to love ourselves. And that needs to happen constantly. You've done that for me, and it's re-edified itself in the past year. So thank you very much, and I love you.
Dr. Hardiman. Doctor, is it on? Oh, okay. Oh, Dr. Hardiman. I just want to say it's an honor to be here tonight because so many people are not here with us, in the physical. And so I'm just blessed to be here to honor you tonight. All I can say is you can't judge a book by its cover. I remember I was at TCC in the Human Service Program, and everybody was talking about this bridge. Oh, what bridge you talking about? What bridge you talking about? I wasn't in the bridge, but they were on the bridge, and they were talking about Evergreen. And it was just so interesting when I came to see the school over on, what street was that? Where were we on? 13. On K Street, yes. Yes. I couldn't remember the cross street, but I remember K Street. We were over there. And it didn't look like a school to me. It didn't look like a school to me. No, it did not. In my mind of where this wonderful happenings was happening, I thought that I would see something different. And what I saw was a humble place that was full of love, and it looked like people that looked like me. And people were feeding people, and it was an open door for people. And we had our children there, and we were learning, and we were proud to learn about ancient Egyptian civilization and, just so many things. But one of the things that I remember is the yeses that I heard, the can-dos. We had an idea, a project. It was always yes. Not so often do I hear a lot of yeses. I feel a lot of bureaucracy, and I see a lot of yeses, but I see a lot of yeses like this, but I don't see a lot of yeses in motion that transform lives. And I know that the student body that I graduated with when we entered in 1999, graduated in 2000, the last year in the building, I think some of the most profound bodies and beings came out of your tutelage. And Dr. Mims, I just appreciate your gift of legacy giving, and I'm committed, and many people are committed to making sure that we get off of your breast, so to speak. I'm a poet, so I have to use this metaphor. I have to, because times are too critical. I don't have time to play. We have to get to work. So we have some quantum leaps to do. Anyways, God bless everybody, but I just wanted to say, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you, and we're committed to going higher.
Thank you so much, sis. Try to keep it to 45 seconds, y'all. I know you missed that prompt. Do y'all want to say something?
I mean, it's like all the pressure.
Speak up, brother.
It's like all the pressures that we. Oh,
So you're just loving on her right now.
I am super glad to be here instead of the hot outside. And I really enjoyed myself here, and my mom enjoys your company as well.
I thought the video we watched, I thought it was really powerful to hear your story and where you came from and where you are now. And I thought it was relatable, and like it feels good to hear that other people have also gone through what I've gone through and worse than what I've gone through, and it like makes me feel grateful to know that I'm not living I'm not going through the hardest. And yeah, and I thought in the video and it was really well put together, and it was inspiring. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Dr. Hardiman, Dr. Mims, being military, I stand in honor of you both. Both of you, people have said a lot of things. I was in the bridge program. I graduated in '04. Every time I know that one of you are around, and I'm not going to cry because you guys know I'm a crybaby kind-ish. When one of you are around, I try to be in your presence because especially tonight, I needed to be here. I needed to hear the words that I'm that dung beetle right now, and I need to come out my muck. So whenever I get the chance to be around you two, I try to make sure I know where you are so I can be there to get that love, that joy that I need, because you guys just give it to me and you don't even know it. And I walk out of your presence like I had a big old hug and I'm loved. So thank you both. I honor you both. Ashe.
To be young, gifted and black, that's my joy. It is just, you all just have no idea what it feels like just sitting here and listening to her. I don't know what else to say. Thank you. Just thank you. Thank you. The key thing to all of this is that there were two people that I have been really close to in terms of greatness, and that's Joy and Oprah. And the thing that they have that a lot of people don't have, they both are black women that listen. They both listen. And instead of striving for success, both Joy and Oprah have been striving to be great. And it's just wonderful to be a part of your circle. To be young, gifted, and black. Nina sends her best.
Dr. Joy, Dr. J. I always try to figure out when our paths first crossed, but it was sometime in the early 80s. That's the best I can do. I just want to thank you for, I'm sitting here running through my mind. It's too many things, but I'm going to hit on the high points. I want to thank you for nurturing the students that I taught at the Urban League. And I want to thank you for including them and inviting them to Evergreen so that they could step inside of a college that housed people who looked like them. And many of them actually graduated. Well, several of them anyway graduated from this institution. And so that's just like more legacy, more influence. And I also want to thank you for embracing me and trusting me as a staff person at this college. And I grew a lot here. And it's just been an amazing ride just knowing you and being in your presence. And every time you and I have a conversation about anything, I learn something new. I get a different kind of an insight, a different kind of a flavor on something. I have aha moments whenever I sit and talk with you. And that's just amazing. I just love you so much. Thank you so much. And I, too, want to be wherever you are.
Okay, let me take that. Excuse me.
So I'm on the spot. Okay, here we go. I thought she said you got it. You got it? Okay, thank you. So Dr. Hardiman, I remember back when ASCAC was happening in Seattle. So I've known you for 20 years now? And it's amazing. And so I'm just glad to see your story. It's amazing. And the fact that you switched from white to black. But anyways, beautiful, beautiful story. And Dr. Mims, another amazing woman. I mean, I was thinking this place here, this campus is magical. There's a great spirit that's here. And so I definitely would like to be more involved. I was staff for a little bit, but because of my handicap situation, I couldn't work long. But I need to talk to Marcia to see if I can get back on the books. I definitely want to. I want to teach, and so I just commend you, commend Dr. Hardiman and Dr. Maxine Mims and Dr. You, Dr. Runga. Yes, yeah, that one. So yeah, I want to be a part. So okay. So who's next? Okay.
So Dr. Joy, I am meeting you for the first time today. And it is magnificent to see you expressing these eternal truths. Also, I was a student in Los Angeles of ancient mystery schools. And to be reminded of those lessons was a real treat today. You've done a magnificent job with what the Creator has given you. What a wonderful life well lived. I'm feeling very blessed and inspired to meet you today.
There's an African proverb that says, I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am. And God does everything for a reason. And Miss Sarunga, back in the early 2000s, taught me sociology, but she taught me more than that. She taught me that I am somebody and that I can come back out and be somebody. And it's because of her I had the opportunity to meet you and Dr. Mims. And I've become somewhat bougie from hanging out with y'all, you know? Yeah. I've become somewhat bougie, man. I've been able to not only, drive you around, but also partake in $300 plates and, go to castles and go to operas and just do things. But, more than that, just to be in your presence on a regular basis. People see you when you show up, but I take you there. So we get to have, in-depth conversations and talk about things and, grow. And I appreciate that. I value that. I know you didn't sign up for it, but, you're kind of like my grandmother, man, that, passed away early on in my life that I get a chance, to relive. And I just want to tell you I love you very much. Thank you.
Mama Joy, you came straight off the plane and came here to your old stomping grounds, your legacy that you've left for the community. And we love you for that. Being able to bring your energy. I don't know how much sleep you've been able to catch on, but it seems like you don't need sleep because you are shining today. I'm excited for this new chapter. I already bought the book. I'll buy the audio book. I'll take a class. I mean, we're excited to watch you grow. Sitting here and watching you claim this new space in your life. Keep going. And we are all right by your side every step of the way. Love you.
Dr. Joy, I thank you so much for personifying love, personifying Mama. We met when I was a very young woman and just did not know that I did not know my way. However, definitely feeling I didn't know my way and didn't realize until 20, 30 years past that moment that you and Dr. Mims have been giving birth to me. And for me to witness that you go to a place and you are baptized into, it seems to me, in you realizing that you are Mama, the highest honor that anyone can have. And I thank you for loving me. I thank you all both for giving birth to me. Thank you in the highest.
Dr. Hardiman. It's always an honor to bask in your light. I don't get very many opportunities to do it, and every time I do, you always pour something into me. Even as we engaged at the front desk, you gave me so much encouragement, and even in those brief moments, I always get so much encouragement from you. And as I'm walking towards graduating, I mean, this educational institution has changed my life. It's absolutely changed my life. It's changed my complete trajectory. It made me rethink, and I plan to continue to rethink, because what I understand is that I don't know what I don't know yet, and that's what you and Dean Tatarunga and Dr. Mims and every other person who is deeply affiliated with Evergreen Tacoma continues to pour into me. And so as you're traveling the world, it makes me want to travel the world. I need to get out and see what's going on and change my paradigm and have some different understandings and hear some different perspectives and have some different experiences and bring the children sometimes and not bring the children sometimes. But then my baby's over there, y'all, and y'all are wonderful. And so with that being said, it's always an honor. It's always a privilege. And I am so grateful to be able to experience you in this place in your life. And so I am so grateful and honored. Thank you.
Wow, Dr. Hardiman, first of all, I want to say you are a magnificent storyteller. Oh my goodness. I mean, we could hang on those stories all night. Of course, I have hung on those stories for many, many years. And I just want to thank you, because when I hear your stories, I realize how much my learning has come from those stories. And I probably parrot a lot of what you say, forgetting that you said it. I thought I said it. So I just want to thank you for allowing me to follow you, to to watch you, to learn from you for so many years. And I just want to say to everyone in this room, the number of alumni, people affiliated with Evergreen, I'm so honored to be a part of this school and to be the dean of Evergreen and following in the legacy of Dr. Hardiman and Dr. Mims. They tell me, don't talk about standing on my shoulders, because that hurts. So I've decided to say following in the legacy of Dr. Hardiman and Dr. Mims. It's just humbling, because when I think about what you started, and that people are still trying to figure out how to educate black and brown people, and you all figured that out 50 years ago. You've been trying to tell somebody, and it's really an honor that we're going to stay true to that legacy that you built, and that you did something so important that the country needs to know about. There was a time in the 70s, that all of these programs were emerging. But today, 50 years later, there's so few of them left. I think it did take not just your critical mind, and you do have such a critical, lifelong learning, yearning. I mean, your thirst for knowledge is tremendous. But it also takes a creative mind. That's what we've heard today, that, right along with that critical understanding of history, understanding of the world, you also, and so I need to create something today. This need for art in your soul, and what you have shared with the world is really so amazing. We can, if we could just follow in those footsteps, I think the world would be a better place. So I just thank all of you for being here, because the caliber of people in this room is also just awesome. And it would take the hearing that Dr. Hardiman is being celebrated that you would gather here today. So thank you so much. All right.
I hope I'm not last. Dr. Joy, okay, you said 45. I just want to thank you for your efforts. And what amazes me about you and Dr. Mims and Dr. Arunga is this association that you have. And with all of the good ingredients in, you hope you have a lot of ingredients out, good ingredients out. But what I really appreciate about you is, and then this starts with Dr. Mims, and then every time I see Joy, I think the same thing. And now I'm seeing Dr. Marsha, is you bring elegance into your presence. So when you're in a room, no matter what you have on, you bring elegance. I mean, I just admire everything Dr. Mims wears. I don't know how many rings she has on her finger, but every time I see you and her, I see elegance, that whatever you had in, what comes out is elegance and majesty to all of us. And I appreciate that. It's like seeing a beautiful flower and admiring it. I don't know what you did before you got up that morning, but when you got here, elegance exudes your presence. And I see that through the legacy of Evergreen. Everybody connected with this, they just dress better. They seem better. I don't know if they do better, but they look better. So I'm saying you don't have to fake it till you make it. You've already made it, but it exudes to us. And that association actually helps us exude majesty and inclusiveness, and I just appreciate it about you, even today.
Yes, thank you. So, Dr. Joy, I'm so grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful for you being my elder first and foremost, but I'm more grateful about the way that that relationship has grown and deepened, especially over the course of this project. I've spoken to you a lot in this last month, and every conversation feels like a masterclass. But it also feels like the deepening of a mutual respect and a love for each other that I hope continues to grow in perpetuity. I love being in your presence. I'm so grateful that I got to meet you through Dr. Marsha Taterunga, in 2009, just as I was turning 30. And it was a really important time to be on that trip. And it was a very important time to be able to spend that time with Black women elders. And I got to meet and hang out with Dr. Mims on the back of the bus for 2 weeks in Kenya. So I'm just grateful for all of those opportunities, and just knowing for all these years that I can access you for help, but also knowing now that I can call you and be like, what's up? What's good? So I really appreciate that.
Oh, please, I forgot. Because this is all made possible because of Nakala. And your brilliance in putting this together. It's a legacy because it will never go away. It's on tape. The world now knows in the Pacific Northwest that Black people live here. And just want to thank you for taking the time to plan, prepare, and execute this project. So well done, Nakala.
And I can't accept that all the way because I got to thank Michael for making it look and sound the way that it does. So the recordings, through the recording process, I liberated a lot of my language, because every time I was like, okay, so I want the shot to look this way, or can we shoot it this way? Michael would be like, what do you want to do? Because shot is a very aggressive term. You know, what do you want? And I was like, well, I want it to be captured. And he was like, what else do you want? And I was like, I want it to be there forever. And he was like, okay, so we're recording, right? So like words like capture, shoot, shot, all that went out, you know, in the name of liberation, right? And so thank you, Michael, for making it look as beautiful as it did. Because when I said I needed things to be captured beautifully, I had no idea they could be recorded that beautifully. So thank you. And next person.
Oh, well, I know that me and Sandy became very much like little activists with you. You had us at your kitchen table and you said, okay, we're going to do this and this and this and this. Let's get it done. And then you would always call us with little extra notes about, well, we could do this, or can you do that, or can you change that? We want to make it look good. And I remember that really, to me, set me up for wanting to strive for something rather than just waiting for it to happen. And that really showed me that I could do a lot more than I ever thought I could. And I also learned how to say yes, and I also learned how to say no at the right time, because I remember working with you, and I was like, okay, I can do that. And then there was one point I said, I don't think I can do that. But it was nice that I could be honest with you, and you give me good feedback of what I needed to do and what not to do. And it was okay if you couldn't do something, you could just find another pathway to do it. So, yes. And I got my MIT.
And you got your degree?
Yes.
Yes, you did. MIT. All right.
Okay. Okay. All right. So is there anyone that did not get a chance to give back to Dr. Joy? Okay.
So
Of course. 40. Yep.
I'm breaking my own rules. Yeah, never mind.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. So, what? So, doc. we all listen. We all listen to a higher authority, Dr. Mims, and that is you in this room. So, as we're concluding, we hope that you receive all of the love in this give back. And we are excited for all of your many evolutions and revolutions. Ashe. And, just may you take all of this love on your path, on your joyful path, and keep living into your name. Yeah. Ashe. Ashe. All right. So this concludes the formal part of our evening, and so we can snack. I will check in with Dr. Tatarunga about when we need to have ourselves out of here. We ain't got to go home, but you know what the rest is. So we got. I'm sure we have a couple of minutes to snack and connect. Also, if you're interested in hearing more about joyful practices, joy actualization coaching for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, let me know. I will have a sign-up list for that. Also, if you are interested in following all of Dr. Joy's presences online, we'll share the email list, right? So make sure you sign up because she is out in these virtual streets. And she has cool content. So let's get it. All right. Thanks, y'all. What's that? Oh, stop. Wait, hold up. So so I said that these first four interview joy narratives are foundational for the collection of joy narratives, and Dr. Marcia Tatarunga's is the final one in this first four. It will be held here at Evergreen on June 9th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So get ready to be in the space and, and see her narrative because it is just as gorgeous and fascinating as this one. All right?
Dean, Doctor, or Dr. Dean?
Yeah.
That's what I need to